Module 13, Pioneers in Victimology, Hans von Hintig, 1852-1934. One of the pioneers in victimology tried to discover what made a criminal predisposed to being a criminal. In his 1941 publication, von Hintig claimed the victim contributed to the criminal act. Victim contribution largely result from characteristic or social position beyond the control of the individual. Benjamin Mendelssohn, 1809-1947. A Romanian lawyer is often credited as the father of victimology. Mendelssohn was fascinated by the dynamic between the victims and offenders. He used to ask victims, witnesses, and bystanders to complete a detailed and probing questionnaire before preparing a case. After examining their responses, Mendelssohn found that usually there was a strong interpersonal relationship between victims and offenders. The father of victimology coined in the May 1900. Stephen Schaeffer, 1911 and 1976. He revisited the victim's role in his book, The Victim and His Criminal. Schaeffer introduced the concept of the functional responsibility of the victim. Schaeffer, 1968, modified the typology provided by Hans von Hintig and presented his own classification. While Hintig tried to identify the varying risk factors, Schaeffer set forth the responsibility of different victims. Marvin E. Wolfgang, 1924-1998. Victim precipitation deals with the degree to which a victim is responsible for her or his own victimization. Using homicide data from the city of Philadelphia, Marvin Wolfgang reported that 26% of the homicide that occurred from 1948 to 1952 resulted from victim precipitation. Define victim precipitated homicide as those instances in which the ultimate victim was the first in the homicide drama to use physical force or violence against his subsequent attacker. Wolfgang views that connotations of a victim as a weak and passive individual seeking to withdraw from an assaultive situation and an offender as a brutal, strong, and overly aggressive person seeking out his victim are not always correct. Menachem Amer, 1921-1968. Menachem Amer examined the concept of victim precipitation through his empirical analysis of rape victims in 1971. Amer concluded from his study of rape victims in Philadelphia that 19% of all forcible rapes were victims precipitated. Amer viewed that the role played by the victims and their contribution to the perpetration of the offense became one of the main interests of the emerging discipline of victimology. Module 14, General Type of Victims. Based on the classifications of Hans von Hintig, a European lawyer. The young, the weak by virtue of age and immaturity. The female, often less physically powerful and easily dominated by males. The old, the incapable of physical defense and the common object of confidence scheme. The mentally defective, those that are unable to think clearly. The immigrant, those that are unsure of the rules of conduct in the surroundings of society. The minorities, racial prejudice may lead to victimizations of unequal treatment by the agency of justice. Other types of victims. Benjamin Mendelssohn, a European defense attorney, created his own classifications of victim types. These include the following 6 categories. First, that completely innocent victims. Such a person is an ideal victim in popular perception. In this category, place persons victimized while they were unconscious and the child victims. Second, victims with only minor guilt and those victimized due to ignorance. Third, the victim who is just as guilty as the offender and the voluntary victims. Suicide cases are common to this category. 4. The victim is more guilty than the offender. This category was described as containing persons who provoke the criminal or actively endorse their own victimization. 5. The most guilty victim who is guilty alone. An attacker killed by a would-be victim in the act of defending themselves were placed into this category. 6. The imaginary victims. Those suffering from mental disorders or those victims due to extreme mental abnormalities. Causes of victimization. One of the primary causes of victimization is social inequality. People from marginalized from disadvantaged communities such as low-income household, ethnic minorities, or people with disabilities are at a higher risk of being victimized. This is because they may lack access of resources and opportunities that can protect them from harm. For example, people from low-income households may live in neighborhoods with high crime rates, making them more vulnerable to violent crimes. Similarly, ethnic minorities may experience discrimination and prejudice, leading to increased risk of victimization. Victimization. Another factors that contribute to victimization is the presence of risk factors. This may include individual or environmental factors that increase the likelihood of being victimized. Individual risk factors may include age, gender, or substance abuse, among others. For instances, elderly people may be at higher risk of being financially exploited, while women may be at a higher risk of sexual assault. Environmental risk factors, on the other hand, may include living in higher crime neighborhoods or being a proximity to higher risk individuals.